I wanted to do a follow-up to the last video I did on this channel, the last Speak Them, about mindfulness. If you haven't listened to that, it's one that I'm really proud of. And if you're out there with anxiety, depression, defensiveness, or anger, these things will help you. I really believe in this because it's helped me out. I've been going to counseling now for about 11 weeks, and I'm a changed man. I cannot begin to tell you. And the thing is, I went to somebody who's a legitimate psychologist with a PhD. There really is a difference between going to a PhD and going to just a psychotherapist. Now, they're all good. Well, they're not all good, but in theory, they're all trained. But those extra years that psychologists take to get their PhD is massively important. So I didn't think about that till I actually did my research and asked them. So understand that it is a very important thing. Now obviously some of you guys can't afford that because it is very expensive, and I get it. So the best we can do is just do what we can, right? So I want to follow up that video, mindfulness, talking a little bit more about CBT, which is not cock and ball torture. Everybody always says that. It's called cognitive behavioral therapy, something that I think is really effective and beneficial to those who have these problems. I feel like too many people who have anxiety and depression are prescribed like pills for that. And if you have a clinical depression problem where your dopamine levels are off balance, then you are going to need that. But if you're just depressed if you have situational depression, you're depressed because of certain situations going on in your life. Maybe you had a heartbreaking experience. Maybe you're broke. Maybe you're bored. Maybe you're lonely. CBT helps. Now, even if you're on clinical depression, CBT will help you. I truly believe in this because it's helped me. You know what I mean? This is not a con. Anybody who sits there and tells you that mental health is not serious, they are a bad human being, or they're very naive. I'm telling you that right now, like point blank. They are extremely naive to the world because it really does help. Now, what I want to talk about moving on from mindfulness is something called the internal dialogue. And this is kind of like what mindfulness is about. Remember how last week I talked about how when you're in a situation where you're being attacked and your defense level mechanisms go up, or you're going through some kind of trauma or some kind of problem, you do what's called mindfulness, where you sit down and you think about it. Well, part of you thinking about the problem, reaction, solution to these things is internal dialogue, where basically you have a conversation with yourself. You're not talking to yourself like a crazy person. You're not mumbling to yourself. You're just sitting there thinking to yourself like, okay, in your brain, you can do it out loud too, but I mean, your brain, you're talking to yourself and you're like, okay, if I do this, it's going to lead to this. Do I want to do this? Or what you could do is, if somebody's attacking you and playing on your insecurities, or some girl does it, or in real world or the internet, you could always just talk to yourself and remind yourself they don't know you, they're just a stranger, they're just talking trash, they're wrong. Or if it's somebody who you care about, right, who's actually giving you real constructive criticism, an actual friend, not some goblin on the internet, you can say something like, okay, maybe they're right. Maybe I should listen. You know what I mean? Because there's a difference between constructive criticism from a perspective of love and somebody being a dick on the web. And too many of these dicks think they're doing the former, and they're not. You know what I mean? And I'm always up for criticism from people who I respect, if it's done right. If somebody tells me, I think you should have done this, or I think you should do that, I'm going to listen. If somebody calls me a name or just attacks my character, I'm not going to listen, because I don't need that kind of negativity in my life. I've talked about that for the past few weeks. Same thing goes for mindfulness. Sometimes you have to remind yourself of that. I'm getting to the point where every week I get better and better, so I don't even need to talk to myself that much. But there are going to be traumas and situations where you are going to need to talk to yourself, and that's what this is all about. By the way, if you hear noises in the background, I have my fan on because it's really, really hot. All right, so please forgive that. So with the internal dialogue, here's a good example of something you could do. Is essentially what you have to do is you have to analyze your thoughts and feelings on something and then try to examine it yourself. So, for example, let's say you're annoyed at something. Let's say that, I don't know. Let's say that your spouse overslept. I'm just using something trivial, but it can be annoying. You had plans to go out, they overslept, you're mad or whatever, your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. Maybe they stayed up late at night because something bad happened. You don't know that. Maybe they're having a bad day. See, the one thing I've learned through mindfulness and through this internal dialogue is that it's possible that when we quickly jump at somebody's throat, it could be a very bad idea, because maybe there's something going on in their head. You got to kind of think about them as well. and not be so self-centered. And I understand it's easy to be self-centered because it's you. You are you, and you have your defense mechanisms and your problems. Again, I've been there. Everything I talk about in these videos, I have experienced myself. This is not bullshit. So when you feel that way, you gotta also think about them and say, okay, well, maybe something's going on that I don't know about. What's going on here? And ultimately, if you have a situation where your spouse does wake up late or whatever, they show up late, if it's not a pattern, you could say, well, now you owe me a couple extra hours. You know what I mean? Playfully. You could use humor to kind of diffuse situation if you have that kind of charisma and just playfully kind of have fun with it. It's one example of the whole internal dialogue. You talk to yourself and you say, well, maybe something else is going on that I don't know about. When people on the web, and I always bring this up, they always fling insults at people. What if that other person who you're flinging insults at, what if they're having a bad day? What if they are, depressed? What if something really bad happened to them? Now, that's why when it comes to me, for months, I've never picked a fight. But of course, motherfuckers come after me, and I tend to respond sometimes. Not as much as before, but I tend to do it once in a while. Definitely not as much as before. But when I do it, it's from a place of me kind of defending myself or me telling the person to leave me alone, which is kind of the new sort of philosophy I have, which I talked about weeks ago on this channel. And if I'm talking too fast, I apologize. I'm literally spilling my heart here. But with internal dialogue, you can think about these things and say, well, maybe it's not the right time to say this to this person. You know what I mean? For example, I'll give you an example. My friend Nicholas committed suicide about a month ago when this video goes up. And I posted it on my Facebook. And I had a guy write, yeah, but the real question is, when's Dragon Ball Super coming back? Now, this actually pissed me off, and rightfully so. A dear friend of mine who I have confided a lot of personal things with, who has been fighting depression and suicidal thoughts for 3 years, and a guy who I genuinely love commits suicide, he's dead, and some ass clown asked me about Dragon Ball Super. See, that's one of those things where that is infuriating to me, because it already pisses me off that people keep asking about this when I've explained multiple times that it's not coming back this year and that it's not even being planned to come back at all until maybe next year or the year after. I've talked about this on several videos, but yet I still get these barnacles who either don't pay attention or just want to annoy me saying this. That's fine. That's fair. Be a troll. But for somebody to post that on Facebook, on a post involving a person who actually died, I was mad. I'm not going to lie. I was very mad. Not mad anymore, but I was very mad because that just shows no class. Like, you have no class, dude. You have no class. You're a scummy person. I don't want you in my life. Like, those kind of people, I don't want to follow me. I don't want them subscribed to me. I don't. Like, I'm one of the only YouTubers who will tell you, if you're an asshole, unsubscribe. I don't want you following me. You know what I mean? I don't. I'm only here for positivity. It's what I'm trying to do. Yes, I've been negative in the past. I want to be positive. So in that situation, I got angry, rightfully so, if I ask, and I thought about this a lot. I was rightfully angry, but there's a reason for it, and I did go off on that guy. I actually banned him permanently from everything because I don't want that guy following me. But the good thing is that I don't have to deal with him ever again, right? And so therefore, I've just kind of made peace with myself on that. I've kind of said, okay, I'm gonna forget he exists in a couple weeks. Or a couple months, whatever, and I'm going to move on with my life. So here is the trick to cognitive behavioral therapy, and I might do a whole video about just this. Cognitive behavioral therapy it's not the bad stuff that happens to you, it's the meaning that you give it. If your thoughts are too negative, if you are clouded by negativity, you're not going to be able to resolve the problem because you're going to think in your head that it can't be resolved. But if you move those clouds out of the way and you actually focus on a solution or on at least getting past it mentally, at that point, you'll find more inner peace and you'll be able to move on. Basically, what I'm trying to tell you is when something bad happens to you, if you let it get to you, you're giving it power, right? You're giving it power. Whereas if you sort of sit back and again, be mindful and say, am I really going to invest my anger and my emotions into this? Sometimes you should, rightfully so. But you got to think about it. Like, think about, is it really worth it? Is it really worth me investing this much energy into this when I can do something productive? Based on kind of what I've been saying, I think I may do more videos on CBT because there's a lot to discuss here, and I'm going to share how it's helped me out more than I already have, because I know that I truly believe in this. And I know that a lot of you I read the comments, a lot of you guys need this, and I think if you had it, it would sort of rewire your brain. And now understand this takes time. You ain't going to be able to do this in a week. It takes time and practice to really restructure your brain, and you'll end up much happier. You'll end up being more at peace. You'll end up being more centered, which is really where I'm at right now. I'm much more emotionally centered than I ever have been in my entire life, literally right now, because of CBT and because of something else called ABCT, which is acceptance and commitment therapy. That's a different thing that I might talk about as well, because I like sharing these with you guys, because even though I'm the one spending the money to get myself fixed, some of you guys aren't able to do that right now because of COVID. You don't have, you might be laid off, and, maybe you can't find a good psychologist. I'm here to, I can't do what they do because I'm not trained and I don't know I don't know. I don't have the skills, but I can tell you how it's affected me. And maybe that could be a good sort of starting point, a good foundation for some of you guys to go out there and actually get therapy and get help. Or maybe if you read up on CBT and you practice it, you might be able to fix yourself. Usually not. Usually you need help, right? Because you have to have somebody sort of guide you. But at least you can get the ball rolling. You know what I mean? And then at that case, you'll just be a lot happier. So I hope this video helped. Understand, the internal dialogue is important. Don't be afraid to talk to yourself and ask yourself questions and then try to answer those questions. Again, you don't have to be a psychopath and be like, mumbling to yourself like Charles Manson. You gotta do that. But I mean, something like, you just sit there and just say, okay, am I gonna let this bother me? Or is it even worth thinking about? And again, I'm in so much, I cannot tell you how much happier I am, dude. I cannot even tell you. Hopefully you can tell by my voice and the way I'm talking that this is good stuff. Thank you again. Take care of yourself and each other.